Welcome to All Things Financial with Jack Driscoll. Each week, Jack takes on all things you thought were hard to understand about your finances and makes it fun, easy, but most of all interesting. From insurance to the best way to save your money and squeeze the most out of the dollars you put aside for your rainy day. And now, you have a friend in the money business. Here's your host, Jack Driscoll.
Welcome back again, everyone. Last week we were talking about the basics of shopping for insurance and the tragic mistakes that are made right off the bat before people even get started. Well, what I wanted to do this week, as a continuation of that series, was go over a couple issues with just different things that you do in your life and how the coverages might work, or whether you even have policies to address those risks. So the first thing I wanted to share with you, I happened to notice an older article from an insurance journal magazine that was from 2011. So I went in to check on something, and here's what the article says. Well, just a little excerpt from it. $10 million. Now, before I go any further, that ought to scare all of you. Because if I ask everyone listening and watching, how much coverage do you have? And again, now we use that term loosely. But when I say how much coverage do you have, I'll bet most of you aren't going to say $10 million. So that number ought to scare you right off. But here's the case. An amount sought by the family of a comatose cyclist. So this was a bicyclist who got hit, and it was an elderly driver of a car that struck him in Maryland. And the names are Nathan Krasnopoler, Krasnopoler, and he was 20 at the time, it appears, an undergraduate student at Johns Hopkins University. So Johns Hopkins University means probably a pretty bright kid, bright future ahead of him. And they alleged that this 83-year-old Jeanette Marie Walke, W-A-L-K-E, had hit the cyclist. And it turns out, I looked it up online now to see what ended up happening on that case. And as it turns out, they settled. And it says they settled for an amount that's not able to be disclosed, but it was a substantial amount. So we're not going to guess here. What we're going to say is a lawsuit was presented against this 83-year-old for $10 million. Now, folks, listen. One of the very reasons we're willing to slide those dollars across the desk to transfer our risk of liability to an insurance company is so that we don't lose everything that took a lifetime for us to build and accumulate in one moment of an accident or mistake or mishap or even weather-related on a home, let's say, mine subsidence. So we're willing to pay money to transfer risks of liability that we can't assume and absorb all on our own. So imagine you live 70 and 80 years accident-free. And then this happens. $10 million. And a whole life of accumulated assets are now put at risk. Do you have enough insurance? That's the question. So when we first shop for insurance, and I'm back to this mistakes in shopping for insurance, apples to apples, apples to apples, apples to apples. If you've done that your whole life, if this 83-year-old or any 80-year-old had done that their whole life, and saying, hey, I'm not driving much anymore, I don't need as much coverage, just quote me apples to apples, and they're still quoting on coverage that was presented to them when they were 20 and 30 years old, and they've only ever allowed anyone to quote apples for the rest of their lives. They might still have the coverage limits they had way back when they didn't have any assets to speak of. And meanwhile, they may have 401ks and retirement accounts, a home, and all these different assets now that they don't want put at risk. And they've never increased or modified, enhanced, improved, upgraded, whatever you want to call it, their policy protection. They might have retirement benefits, pensions, who knows? So folks, listen, use common sense here. These limits on today's lawsuits are way higher than they were 30 years ago. Are your coverages? If you're still quoting apples to apples or trying to, actually the mistake is you're trying to do it on your own. You're trying to compare apples to apples or go on the internet or quote on your insurance. You're trying to do it on your own. If you get skilled professionals in every area of your life, a qualified, certified public accountant, qualified attorneys for your legal representation, for your wills, for your living trusts if that's what you choose, for your charitable planning, for your legacy planning, you have skilled financial advisors, skilled life insurance professionals. Get someone or a group as a team around you to advise you and make sure that your greatest concerns financially, because this shows all things financial. We can't solve everything, folks. But your greatest concerns financially are being put in the hands of the highest credentialed and qualified professionals to handle each area for you and with you. So I don't want your professionals making decisions for you, folks. I want the professionals being guides and assistants making good decisions with you and helping you as the final determinant and decision maker, helping you make the best decisions, equip you with information to make the best decisions possible for yourselves. That goes for you business owners, that goes for you individuals. So the number one test when you're shopping for insurance is, are my limits adequate? There is no right answer to that. Everybody's circumstances and situations are different. One person needs one set of limits that they're comfortable with and can afford, and the very next door neighbor has a totally different set of circumstances and might choose to structure and build an insurance portfolio of far different limits. So, I bring up this one case because any one occurrence could wipe everything out. Take this very seriously. Okay, I wanted to share that with you. Now let me share some areas that you don't think about. When you go on vacation and you rent a boat or a jet ski, are you covered? When you rent a car, are you covered? If you own a boat. So here's what I wanted to point out. There are some differences when you have car insurance and if you own a boat, have boat insurance. So you'll be thinking, I have coverage, I'll shop for it the same way, or have collector cars, or have motorcycles, or have recreational vehicles, or have quads, or snowmobiles, whatever it is. Each carries with it their own set of circumstances and risks. So what I want you to do, I want you to first see things that are different and unique to the set of circumstances. Let's talk about boats. Are people on your boat covered? You don't have to know the answers, folks, to the questions I raise. You have to know the questions. You have to write down the questions that I'm giving you and then ask the agents that you have. So you don't have to answer me if I say, are your passengers covered? Is anyone else covered? Is their personal property covered? You know, you get people coming on your boat, and they bring their cell phones, and they bring their radios, and they bring their fishing tackle. Can be very expensive. Goes overboard. Are you liable for that? Are they liable for that? Are you covered for that? Are they covered for that? Folks, you don't have to know the answers to these questions. You have to know the questions. Now, what do you do with the questions? You ask your agent. You go to the agent and you say, I have some questions that I saw on a video and I heard over the radio. I never thought to ask you. Am I covered for this? So I want you to think next time you're out on your boat. What could go wrong? Write them down. I wonder. What could go wrong? My boat leaked. Somebody got hurt. I had a skier on the back. Whatever it is. Write the things down that scare you most and just ask the questions the next week. Call the agent. Other coverage options are available on boat policies that aren't available on car policies, like mechanical breakdown. If the outboard or inboard, the mechanical breakdown, there's coverage available for that in some policies and other policies not. How about fishing equipment that you have on the boat, radar, sonar, whatever it is that you have, especially on the bass boats and all, are they covered? Or do you have to specifically tell the insurance company you have that equipment to get it covered? And folks, out of 100 people listening and watching the show, maybe 5 will call the agent and be told, you're not covered for those, good thing you called. Maybe the other 95 are covered. Doesn't matter. If this show helps anybody, then it helps everybody. Now, did you know there are discounts on boat policies that are different than car insurance? So you think if I have a good record, our ages are good, we're over 30 years old, etc., our credit's good, we're going to get good boat insurance rates too for the same discounts. But get this, how about account rounding, educational credits for boater safety courses? How about equipment discounts for having safety equipment on the boat? How about taking advantage of any of these savings that you didn't know to ask for, that you might be missing out on simply because you didn't know to ask for the discounts? So I wanted to share that with you. How about recreational vehicle insurance? When we have recreational vehicle insurance, we have the same thing in unique circumstances. But here's what we have different. There's a lot of equipment in recreational vehicles that aren't in normal cars and aren't on normal boats. And I mean refrigerators, stoves, couches, cabinets. When we think of those recreational vehicles, we might be to the extent of driving a house down the road. And a question has to be, if all of that equipment in this boat gets damaged or the whole thing gets stolen, am I covered for that? So folks, write it down. Now, what about if it's a trailer and it's a recreational vehicle, but it's not self-propelled and you have it hooked onto your car? Is it covered? Hey folks, that's a good question. A lot of people say, oh yeah, if I have it hooked onto my car, it's covered. A lot of people say, I don't know. Some people say, I don't have it insured, maybe it's not covered. And my next question will be, well, while it's hooked onto your car or your truck, while you're driving down the road, if you have an accident in your truck, are you covered? Well, yes, I have my truck covered. You'll say, I have my liability covered, so that if I hit anyone else or anything else, I've coverage for that. And then I'll ask you how much coverage when we get into that whole discussion. But when we're trailing something, and we didn't know you were trailing it as an agent, you walked it on there, but you didn't tell anybody, and you swung wide and it came off, or you swung wide and hit a parked car or someone that you didn't see as you were backing up, now are you covered? Now, I'm not asking if the trailer is covered or the boat that you're hauling. I'm asking, are you covered for the liability while it's hooked onto your vehicle? Folks, ask the questions. Write them down. That's the purpose for this show. And then ask the questions. So you're going to ask all of that. And then if so, what are the limits? Because if you run somebody over and your $100,000 bodily injury limit is the maximum, you might get a little nervous. So you're going to want to talk about some optional coverages on some of these areas. Now, recreational units, again, with all of this equipment, you can usually endorse, let's say, a motorhome or a mobile home, and you can endorse all this extra equipment and awnings and things like that. A motorhome is typically portable, not parked in any one place at one time, where a mobile home many times is skirted. It's stationary for years and years sometimes, and it's more like a stationary residence than it is a motorhome. And definitely not a mobile home equals a motorhome, as you could see. So the coverages are going to probably be very different. And you're going to want to make sure you have the right coverages in line with your needs, especially when you're away. So you say, I have a mobile home at my camp, or that is my camp, and the agent, you don't know to ask the agent or even talk to them about, is it my primary residence or is it seasonal? So you go back up the next summer or winter, and rodent damage tore through the whole motorhome, and or mobile home, and you say, oh boy, I better call my insurance agent. Well, you sure want to hear the answer, yes, you're covered for that. You don't want to hear the answer, oh no, you're not covered for that. We didn't know it was stationary, or we didn't know it was only seasonal, or we didn't know this, or we didn't know that. You don't need to find those things out after a claim. So I wanted to point that out to you. There are special coverages that you might not even know to get. Now, how about this? While your unit's in storage, or again in the winter, but even in storage, what about freezing water supply in the holding tank or vandalism? So you're going to want to check on those coverages, because that's different than your normal car insurance needs, as you could see. Here's another area you'll definitely want to be looking at in your own policy or asking the agent. Most car insurance policies, the physical damage coverage covering the car itself is called comprehensive and collision, and it's normally settled on an actual cash value basis, otherwise known as ACV. And you'll be able to see that on many policies. It'll just say the deductible, ACV minus $1,000, ACV minus $500. That just means they're going to depreciate the vehicle, or we'll use what we customarily refer to as the blue book value. You know, it's not really the blue book value, but we still call it that. But it communicates it's what your car would be worth if you traded it in or sold it on a retail market, which are two different numbers, or maybe an average of those. So that's an actual cash value would be all you would receive on a car insurance policy. Well, when you have a boat or a recreational vehicle, one option you can buy is market value. That's what your individual motorhome, mobile home, boat might be able to get on the market. So that's market value, is different than actual cash value, which is described as replacement cost minus depreciation. Commonly we call that the blue book value, but it's not by pure definition really a blue book value. So you have the blue book value, you have the ACV, actual cash value, which is replacement cost minus depreciation. Then on a motorhome and mobile home, some of these recreational vehicles, you also have another option you can buy, unlike a car insurance policy, which is total loss replacement coverage. Now again, you can do this on collector vehicles, collector cars, and we've done that a lot on the collector car policies. Interestingly enough, collector car policies coverage is a lot less expensive than regular car coverage, and here we're able to buy replacement cost versus actual cash value or depreciated value. So there are a number of things you can buy on your recreational vehicle policies I wanted to make you aware of, as opposed to just buying a standard off-the-shelf, as I'll refer to it, recreational vehicle policy and assuming that you have all that you need. Can be very inexpensive to make some of these very valuable and great differences in the value on which you're insured. Get the right coverage. Can be very, very inexpensive, maybe even almost the same premium you were paying unknowingly without having those coverages. Okay, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
If you're a business owner or an independent contractor, you know the cost of doing business. You have your equipment, your personnel, advertising costs, and doing everything you can to outdo the competition. But do you run your business, or does your business run you? Your business is truly an investment. Is that investment insured? Jack Driscoll is here to help. At Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services, he provides complete business planning services ranging from property insurance programs to disability, life, hospitalization, and long-term care programs. He not only designs insurance protection plans tailored for your business and protects what is already built, but strives to strengthen your business through providing employee benefit and group programs. It's through this unique combination of skills that Jack has become a valuable resource for business owners and managers. Educate yourself first by going to DriscollFinancial.com and clicking on Business Insurance, or give Jack a call at 412-833-1500. Your business and your employees need you to be prepared, and you need to be protected. Log on to DriscollFinancial.com or call 412-833-1500. Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services. Insure for today. Invest for tomorrow.
Okay, welcome back. Now, before the break, remember I started talking about on the recreational vehicles the different types of coverages that you can choose. Actual cash value, blue book value we might call it, red book value, whatever they want to call it. It's depreciation, probably the lowest value you could receive if someone stole your RV. Market value is the second one I touched on, what it would actually bring in the market at that time. The third option that's sometimes available on an RV policy for purchase is agreed value coverage. Now what that is a coverage that the policyholder and the insurance company actually agree in advance on an amount that they'll pay you at the time of a claim. So you're buying a limit when it's purchased, but it's actually an agreed limit at the time of a claim, what you'd be paid without haggling. That's an agreed value or an agreed amount coverage. You know, I think the insurance agents, for those of you who have these RV policies, classic car policies, classic car policies aren't all the same. You look at different companies and you say, this company's more expensive than that. Without getting the policy booklets out, not just the declaration pages, you don't know why it's more expensive. Again, my evaluation of more expensive cars versus less expensive cars, a Mercedes, for example, versus a Kia, there's a reason the cost is different. It doesn't make one of the cars better than the other, but it makes them different. There's a difference. And their differences are sometimes worth paying for, and sometimes, in other cases, not worth paying for. Depends on your budget and your personal situation and circumstances. It is the same for insurance. Some people want the best attorneys, the best legal representation, so they're hiring the best partner, which might be a multinational insurance company. And another person might say, I don't care, I just want a small regional firm that probably has to sub out the attorney work or the claims representatives using an independent claims firm. But at least go into that with your eyes open and know that you're getting a difference, not thinking, I got exactly the same thing as I had before. When you're first shopping for coverage, get a skilled professional to help you analyze. Even when we get to these recreational vehicle policies, if you talk to someone who only handles one company, the contract with that company in the policy booklet is what you're going to get. You might be able to ask them, are there coverage enhancements with that company? But you certainly can't ask them, how about are there 5 other companies that are dominant in this industry also, and can you help me find the best one for my personal needs? So that's why I recommend the independent agent as being the representative of choice to help you shop for your insurance companies rather than you trying to do it for yourself and on your own. All right, folks, we're again out of time. When we come back, I'll probably continue this discussion because I keep running out of time and there's so much more I want to get to for you. But helping you compare on your insurance and being able to get the best packages available. So we're out of time. We'll be back again next week, and thanks for tuning in.
You've been listening to All Things Financial with your friend with the answers to all financial matters, Jack Driscoll of Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services. Securities and investment advisory services offered through Sage Point Financial Incorporated, a registered broker-dealer and registered investment advisor and member FINRA and SIPC. Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services is not affiliated with Sage Point Financial, Inc. or registered as a broker, dealer, or investment advisor. You can reach Driscoll Insurance and Financial Services Incorporated at 412-833-1500, and they are located at 2738 South Park Road, Bethel Park, Pennsylvania, 15102.